Hello again. If you've been following the saga of me with my 841 Powermaster tractor, then here's another episode for you. I got the tractor out the other day and went to use the loader and it wouldn't work. I would try to raise it and I was feeling a bit of a vibration in the engine and hearing some rattling, and the loader was trying to push up just a little and didn't really work. And so I stopped the tractor and come check it out, like what's going on here. And what ends up happening is that we've got a problem with the shaft that connects the hydraulic pump to the tractor. I was able to move it forward and back a bunch, and as a result it was getting kicked out of the engine, or it was on the hydraulic pump and not even touching the engine, or just touching enough to get the teeth sheared off, and I'll show that in a little while. But what we're looking at here is the front end of the tractor. All the yellow is the part of the loader, and this silver thing right here is the hydraulic pump that is part of the loader. Behind it is a toothed, a splined rod, and then behind that is a hub that connects to the rod. It bolts to a drive shaft that goes way back through this underneath the radiator. And that's the front panel of the tractor, and then through the front axle and into where the engine is, and then it connects with a splined rod to another hub that is connected to the pulley. The pulley is the fan belt pulley, or the power steering pulley. I don't have the power steering on there. I don't have it yet. So the engine, as it's turning around through this shaft, is spinning the pump, which builds up the pressure, which allows the loader to work. I know for a fact that the drive shaft has to be replaced. And I'm also pretty sure that the hub on the engine has to be replaced too. That is going to be the most difficult part will be getting that off. I have a game plan for that. But basically what I'm going to do is go through taking off the pump, taking out the shaft and showing you the damage on the teeth, and then taking off that hub and then replacing it all and making sure when I put it back together that it has the correct amount of play from front to back. Apparently it's supposed to be about 1/4 inch. I have to check on that. But if it's just about that much, then it's enough where the teeth are going to stay engaged on both ends. And that may have not been true before. I don't really know what was happening before. Maybe it turns out that something else caused this, but I'm going to discover it as I go along the way. So here's where we are. The pump is already unbolted. You can see there's kind of a gap between the bolt and that plate, because I was trying to evaluate whether I could get the shaft off without taking the pump off. Turns out not really. So what I'm going to do next is take the pump off and hopefully not drop all the hydraulic fluid on the floor in the process. But that's where we're going. I disconnected the pump on both sides and caught a little oil down there and removed the drive shaft. Here it is. It fell in the bucket, so it's a little oily. But as you can see on this end, the splines are great. There are 13 splines on this end. This hub comes off, and then the shaft is like this, and you can see right here just how wrecked that shaft is. This whole end got worn off. This part is stronger than I thought it would look. But anyways, that's worn off. That's probably basically as the shaft came out of the engine kept spinning, and just because it wasn't biting on the shaft and spinning it, it was just eating the tooth off. So this hub is good. I'm going to remove it and save it and attach it to the other one, and I'm going to I still have to replace the one and take the one off that's connected to the engine. But that's where we are. Alright, so I need to take the hub off the front pulley, but the unfortunate thing is even if I can reach the pulley and twist it, the engine will turn. So what I'm going to try to do is take the old shaft. I took the hub off the front of this shaft, and then I took this piece of wood and cut and drilled holes in it so that I can put the shaft in there, then put this piece of wood on top of it, bolt the piece of wood to the shaft, and then use this as a brake so that it will stop the engine from turning when I put torque on the front pulley. That's the hope anyway. So I'll take this hub, slip it up in here, through the front axle and into the front of the engine there. Make sure it's locked in place. It's kind of tight there. And then slip this up here. It looks like it should fit. We'll see. And then I'm going to put some bolts in the front of that just to hold it in place. We'll see how it works. Ah, sweet. My tool worked. I bolted that piece of wood right there to the front of the drive shaft and then used it to lock the engine in place because you can't necessarily see it, but that board can't move very much. And then when I needed to get to access to a different bolt, I just pulled that drive shaft out a little bit, turned the engine and shoved it back in and locked it in place. It's such a handy tool. It's amazing what you can make when you think through the problems you have. Alright, now I got to order a replacement hub for that, and I'm going to put my pump back so I can get some work done, but that's where we are. You can see the teeth on this good hub that was at the pump end. It has are angled on the inside there, and the teeth look relatively intact on the inside. If you look at this one that was on the pulley, you can see that the top of the teeth are basically run off, they're ground down, much like the shaft was. So, yep, I definitely need to replace that hub right here. Okay, so there's the flywheel. You can see the holes where the bolts go into the flywheel for the hub to go on there. And I've got my new hub in. Here's that. It looks like it's somewhat cheaply made. If you look straight onto it, this hole looks like it's kind of off-centered. But I compared it to the old one and it looks just fine. I think it will work. It also does not have a chamfered top, so that'll be interesting, but I think it should work. There it is. Alright, now to install it. Okay, so I have attached the new hub right there to the flywheel using 4 bolts. It was harder than I expected because 2 of the bolts are larger than the others. The standard size for these bolts is 7/16 inch, and 2 of the bolts were larger, which means that sometime in the past, I'm guessing 2 bolts were hard to get out, so they drilled them out and re-tapped them to be bigger screws. So it took a while to figure out how to line up that hub and to get it on there correctly, and then tightening it down was not such a big deal. But now it's ready to go. Now it's time to put the pump side hub on the shaft and try it in the track. Alright, so here I have the pump hub and shaft going through the front axle and into the hub over there. And then up here I've lifted up my pump. It's disconnected on this side. I've lifted it up so it's out of the way. And I have a problem. Hard to see, but I'll have to describe it. Basically, this round edge right here fits inside the hole on this plate, and then the shaft from the pump comes out exactly 1 inch. The challenge is that the front of this hub is also exactly 1 inch from the back of this plate. So I have to take this hub back out and install some washers between the pump side hub and the shaft in order to bring that hub out enough to reach the pump. Now I have the tools to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So I've got it attached. It looks really silly. I had to get longer bolts and then use 7 washers to make a total of 1/2 inch. I think that will be enough to reach the pump and then have just a little bit of forward and back play, but not too much so that it comes out again like it did with the last one. Let's see how it goes. Unfortunately, I can't get the shaft to go in there because it keeps hitting on this front plate. So I'm going to have to shorten it by 2 washers. Oh well. So I went down to 5 washers, and then it was still not enough, or too many. So I wasn't going to go down to 4 because I want to make sure this thing is secure. So what I did was I went back up to 6 washers, and then I left one of the bolts out. Went back to the shorter bolts because I don't know if you can see this, but if the bolts extend out the back of that hub, they're going to hit the radiator. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. The bolts are going into that shaft maybe a 1/4 inch, which should be enough as long as the lock washers are biting down tightly. So I think that'll be good. And then now all I have to do is install the pump, move it down here and go into that hole, and it should lock up just right. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, I've got it all tightened up. There's a little conflict trying to get the second of these pump bolts through. It is tight, but it suggests there might be some kind of binding in the pump and the angle of the shaft to the engine. I was able to turn the shaft while it's on the pump, so it's free enough for me to move, so I can't imagine it'll be a big deal, but hey, what the heck? If it burns out, it's going to destroy the pump. It's only $800, right? Anyways, looks like it's done. Let's give it a try.